Welcome back to Car-Pinionated, our weekly show on cars, the car industry, and driving in general, and some opinions thrown in. I'm Doug Stewart, Senior Digital Content Producer at Fox 61 in Hartford. And joining me is Jeff Buckles, editor and writer for WBBM in Chicago, an automotive enthusiast, and Glenn Packman, who is from beautiful Fairfield County and an improv comedian and a car enthusiast as well. Welcome, gentlemen. Gentlemen, there's a wide range of new vehicles that have dropped within the past couple of weeks. And I think we're going to start with the low end and work our way up to the high end. So the first one I wanted to talk about, and the first two are kind of priced at the same point. The Nissan Kicks has gotten a redesign, and first off, any redesign that makes it better than the Juke that it probably started as is plus in my book.
Yeah, not a very high benchmark to hit. Come on. I mean, let's make it better looking than the Juke. Okay, yeah. That wasn't all that hard. Yeah.
Yeah, the little doodles that I do during the news meeting are better than that.
Better just yes.
But anyway, so I would imagine that the Kicks is taking the place of the Sentra at some point, which will be moved out and on. It starts around $22,000 and as an MSRP base, and then runs the base for the top of the line SR is $26,000. That's not including that is just the front wheel drive at about $1,500 for all wheel drive, which I think, considering there's a lot of cars of that size at that price point, that they don't offer all wheel drive. And I think it's a nice looking little car. I don't know as it be what I want, but I think it's it serves that function at the low end of the product lineup for Nissan. Glenn, what do you think of the little Kicks?
I am glad that they've decided to put all-wheel drive. I don't think the outgoing Kicks had the all-wheel drive option, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's right. I like it. It's interesting, anyways. I don't know if it would make me go, "Wow, what a great looking car," but it's distinctive without being radically ugly, which is what I always felt the Juke was. And forgive me, I always thought the Juke was a great idea. This little diminutive SUV, and I think you could get all-wheel drive on the Juke if memory serves. I just thought the idea was there. The execution was just, it was just ping, 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 ping all over the place. I just never got what they were trying to do stylistically with the Juke. This makes a little bit more sense. It's somewhere between a little wagon and an SUV and the Sentra, which is a good combination for people looking for something in that price range.
It's what the low end of any car manufacturer builds these days.
Right, and we do need a low end. I mean, we want entry level cars to be available for people, and they shouldn't have to they shouldn't be penalty boxes. They should have some features, and they should be at least decent to drive. And the one thing I will say about the Sentra going out, they definitely achieved that with it. Very inexpensive car, but it had a few touches that made it look like something a little bit better. And having ridden in one, I was impressed that it wasn't just, I could see myself taking a long drive in that car and not really hating it. It was underpowered and a lot cheap here and there, but it's the bottom end of the market. And all I could think of was, if I was a kid and I was affording my first new car, that's a great direction to go in. So that's where I think that this is going to appeal. And I could see younger drivers gravitating to this car easily.
Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Can we talk about how incredibly crowded this segment of the market is right now.
Yeah.
Anyone who is shopping for something in the compact sport utility vehicle lane is really spoiled for choice right now. This Kicks is a really nice refresh. It's a little more handsome than the old one. I rented the first version of the Kicks a few years ago, and it was one of the cars of all time. It was fine. This one certainly seems better and is equipped about the way cars are, come equipped these days. The extra cost for all-wheel drive and loading it up makes it very close to being not a terrific value, but there's a ton down at this level for people to choose from between this, the Hyundai Venue, the Kia Soul, which continues to sell extremely well and I think is really positioned here. The Chevy Trax is an incredible value. Ford isn't really a player here, which surprises me a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But even like the Toyota Corolla Cross and the Honda HR-V a little bit. I mean, there's a ton of stuff happening here. We've talked a lot about sort of the end of the inexpensive small sedan. And what happened is, I mean, nothing is as inexpensive as it used to be, right? But what happened was all those inexpensive cars now become the SUV form factor, which is sort of I guess, the natural evolution of cars now. There's a lot to recommend it. And frankly, Nissan dealers need the help. They have not had a good year. The product mix has been not great. The odd public image of Ultima drivers isn't helping. And they really need something to get people in the house. And this just might do it, especially if someone's trying to find a Hyundai and they can't find one on the lot, or the Trax is sold out at their local Chevy dealer and they whip by the Nissan place and they go, oh, hey, what's that? Yeah, there's a ton available now, which is a good development for everybody.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
It always seems to me that the car makers sort of entered into this realm very cautiously. Like they thought people want SUVs to be big. And then when they started making smaller SUVs and they started getting snapped up, everybody was like, whoa, wait, what? Because do we really need a car that slots between the little tiny SUV and then the next one up? Well, we do. I just bought something in that range. There's so many people want their useful little utility vehicles, and that's why the sedan is really going away. This car is just a sedan with a better riding position and a back that hauls stuff. So why not? And it is the evolution of the car, I think, in this country. It's what people want to buy. The sedan used to be the car, and now the RAV4 class size is the predominant seller. That's your Rogue, your Escape, etc. That one. So yeah, and along those lines, we still need the smaller cars, the entry level stuff for people who are entering. By all means,
I think Jeff, you're right. It's interesting that Ford is in the space after the demise of the EcoSport, which I don't think anyone's crying about, to be perfectly honest with you.
I wept.
No, that thing was
did not weep. I can, yeah.
Yikes.
So yeah, and what?
How do we make a Fiesta worse? Oh yeah, build it in Brazil.
We're going to go to talk about the Kia K4, which Kia has helpfully decided that all their car lines, the sedans, are going to be numbered so that you can figure out which is the larger and the smaller, and it's going to have a K and a number, and you can figure it out from there. So the K4, okay, I'm totally blanking on it. It's replacing the
Forte.
Yes.
The Forte. Nice looking. I think it's I think it's got, so it's got some weird cues to it, but I think that it does stand out for, a small, inexpensive sedan. The last model started at $20,000, $10 under that. So, and it has obviously some design cues that the larger K5 has, which used to be the Optima.
Right.
Jeff, what are you thinking about the K4?
So the thing that Kia has done that is kind of brilliant is they've introduced a car in the Civic Corolla class that is priced fairly close, maybe a shade under, but it's ever so slightly larger than those cars. And because of the way it's designed, it looks bigger, I think, even than it is. I think these are fantastic. The interior is really nice. They're extremely well equipped. Even your sort of rental car spec K4 is really, really well equipped. And you know what? I rise in support of the Nissan Juke and the Kia K4 here. In a world where people constantly complain that all cars look the same, and if it didn't have a grille on it, I wouldn't know what it was. God bless the Koreans, and in particular the folks at Kia Hyundai for creating cars that are distinctive and interesting. And I'm not going to say that, a 10-year-old Sonata's design is aged particularly well, but you always know what it is, right? It's not an anonymous car. And the Juke, while not the car I would have designed, I wouldn't have necessarily put a hyperactive frog on 4 wheels, but you always knew what it was, and it didn't look like anything else. And for some people, that's enough, and that's cool. I think the K4 is actually incredibly handsome. There is a detail. I think the C-pillar is a little weird.
Yes.
But you know what? It doesn't look like anything else on the road, and it has personality and style and a sort of a just sense of you've never seen anything like it, and more power to that. I think if they can bring enough here or build enough here wherever they're building them, I think they'll have no trouble selling them. It's a dynamite car and a great value.
Yeah. If I can dovetail off of that, I agree with you about the C-pillar on the sedan. It looks as if they're going to do a hatch version, which sort of cleans that up and is very compelling in my book. It's got a wagony sort of a feel to it that is really, it's a lower SUV, but it doesn't scream SUV either. It's I want to see one of these up close. I think for me, it airs a little bit close to being a little over designed. One of my pet peeve cars was the last generation Civic, because I just felt like Honda took every last little thing from their parts catalog and threw it at the car. And there were plastic panels and fake vents and all this stuff that just didn't need to be there. So, and that just rubbed me so the wrong way that now I want to go back and be more of a purist. But that being said, there is a lot going on here. None of it sticks out to me as being offensive, and more that it's propelling the language that Kia is putting forth with their cars. So I'm looking at a 3/4 view of the hatch version. It's in kind of a banana yellow, which is okay for photographing, I guess. But other than that, this is a cool looking car. It's very, and this is, an affordable class again too. So what you're saying about making it a little bit luxe, and it goes a long way. So I want to see one of these up close.
Hyundai, Kia, I mean, they really do very well in this end of the market. A couple of years ago, I was in Las Vegas and I rented an Elantra, which is the same car, essentially. And it had, and this was rental car spec, and it had push button start, wireless charging, CarPlay and Android Auto, a little notification when the car in front of you pulled away so you could put your phone down and drive. It's really well, these are really well equipped cars. And I remember thinking as I was driving this thing around, and this was literally like I walked up to the rental car desk and I'd reserved the manager's special. So I didn't know what I was getting, and I got this thing, and I'm like, you know what? I would actually buy this and drive it. It's a fine car. It's 95% of whatever I need. It's great.
Sure.
And this new Kia is going to be that, only more handsome.
And there's no reason why at this price point people shouldn't have something nice.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
and it should be like, you should feel like, hey, I have something cool, right? That in and of itself means that the next time they're considering buying a car, they're going to go back to that dealership, right? Because how many repeat buyers of Chevy Vegas, you know, the next car they bought, they didn't go back to the Chevy dealership, you know?
Gotcha.
And so, I mean, that's maybe an outlier case, but, you know, you look at these, you look at the equipment that they have, you look at the design, you know, it sells it. I mean, it really does. It does a lot. So anyway, all right. Our next car up the pricing ladder, that's just come out, is the new, for 2025, refreshed GMC Terrain. Boy, you know, when it comes to aggressive looks, GMC bought the whole box of it, I think. There's a lot of people who buy this. It's apparently one of their best sellers. It looks like somebody shrunk the Yukon in some degree, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But it's interesting, and you know, I'm interested in what you guys have to say for it. Jeff?
I had to look at pictures of the 2024 and the 2025 to figure out what was different. This is the Equinox platform made, if memory serves.
Yep.
It is, I mean, it is a General Motors SUV. It will, it serves, I think, the audience it needs, which is, you know, people who are walking into Buick dealerships, since they are dual, most of them are dual franchise now.
Right.
I think it probably fits its niche pretty well. This is just a mid-cycle refresh, right? Like, this isn't like a full,
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
It does what it's supposed to do. It doesn't occur to me that it stands out at all in that class. I think the Equinox is good, but I think there are other cars in that class that are better. I don't know that it's going to make anybody stop looking at the Hyundai Santa Fe to come back to Hyundai Kia for a second. You know, but you know what, if they have a Denali version and they have an AT4 version so that Will Arnett can keep doing dramatic voiceovers for their ads, then we'll probably be fine.
I feel sometimes with a lot of the GMC cars that they should have a trim level called incognito, because it doesn't feel like it stands out for anything. It doesn't, you know, it's like, yep, that's another car. I mean, this is kind of, to me, it's the definition of all cars look alike. That's my feeling. And
the Denalis are handsome. Like the Denali trim in general is really handsome, but I mean, beyond that, you know, I suppose the interiors are a step up from Chevrolet on purpose, but it's fine. People will buy it. It probably does. The engine does engine things. I don't know. It's probably going to sell.
Yeah. Yeah. There
If-
are the security companies fleets full of them all.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff,
Uh,
I'm sorry, Glenn.
If I may, and just to prove my point, just do a side-by-side picture comparison, pull up a Google search of 2025 GM Terrain, and then do 2025 Buick Envision. And there is absolutely zero comparison. The Envision is a gorgeous piece of machinery, and the Terrain is an SUV. It just, it's, I'm sorry, it just seems, it's not ugly. It just seems very anonymous to me. It's just, it
Right.
doesn't break any new ground. Now, I will say that the Terrain looks like it's going to be more rugged, more sporting. So if you're going to be doing the outdoorsy stuff, then there's an obvious choice. How many of us actually do that, you know?
Right.
But
Or want to look like you do the outdoorsy stuff.
yes, exactly, exactly.
Because
So,
you're trading in the Outback with the special trim package with all the plastic cladding on it. Made you
right,
look like you did a lot of rappelling down the
right. I'm gonna say
Yeah.
more important for people is how expensive the car looks. And again, no comparison here. The Terrain just doesn't look nearly as classy as the Envision from the same family of cars. And to that, I think there it's gonna, you know, I can just see that one is gonna sell better than the other. At least in my mind, that's what I think. Not a bad car. I'm hoping that they addressed some of the issues from past Terrains, and that I know someone who owns one, and it was woefully underpowered for the weight of the car, and he never enjoyed driving up steep hills with it because it just did, you know. So that's the kind of thing that I'm hoping that GMC addresses more than anything else. But when you got a whole family full of cars to pick from, that's going to be one of the issues, I think.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna move to a 3 times price point with the new updated Lincoln Navigator, which the pricing starts at 6 figures into $100,000, which is a lot of money. It looks like it's got a lot of stuff there, so I don't probably fit, but when you're that's a lot of money for a car. And Glenn, what do you think about the new Navigator?
It's big. It's a big car.
Right.
I, oh God, I'm torn. Some of this I really like. I kind of dig that we're going back to a more boxy shape. Um, but this takes it a little far in my mind. It's a little too toastery for me, just from a looks point of view. Now the interior looks gorgeous, and Lincoln knows how to do an interior. They just do. And I'm sure that driving this car is going to be a fine experience. Maybe because I'm looking at it in white, it's just showing all the things that I don't particularly like about it. But for me, it looks like a very big, very luxe station wagon of old. And that might score with some people. I don't know if I would spend the money on something like this, but that's because it's not my kind of car. So, but I'm not going to fault it. It's certainly, I don't think anybody's going to go, oh God, that's ugly. You know, me, it's just, I don't know. It's a little boxy, but is my big gripe. But another one I would love to see up close so I can judge it in person.
Jeff, what are your thoughts?
We can establish, I think, now that these cars are the true American luxury cars now. And Lincoln's been in this. I mean, Lincoln, it kind of invented this space. I mean, never mind the Range Rover, which started out as being a classy farmer's car, basically.
Yeah.
Or the Land Cruiser, which is the official car of UN peacekeepers everywhere until Toyota decided to turn it into a Lexus. I mean, Lincoln created this market in 1998 with the Navigator. And despite some sort of faltering in the aughts, I think a little bit, They do this really, really, really well. I think this car is incredibly handsome. It feels expensive. It looks expensive. The lighting signature on it is distinctive in that kind of showy way that luxury cars are doing now. But it doesn't bother me on this as much as it does on like a Mercedes-Benz or something like that. The interior, as Glenn points out, is fantastic. That giant sweep of digital screen across kind of the right below the cowl is really striking and fantastic. And the seats are phenomenal. I read that the perforated pattern on the leather is designed to mimic raindrops, which I think is one of these details that, you know, Ford and Lincoln just do extremely well. Let's all hail the return of the split tailgate, by the way,
Yes.
on this
yes.
car. No
Yep.
more,
Yeah.
you know, single piece hatch. But in fact, the preferred way, the superior way to design a tailgate on a large SUV is the part swings up and then there's another part that pops down so that you can actually sit on the tailgate. And I think there's even a table. Lincoln has a table that you set up so that you can, you know, I don't know, serve crudité. I have no idea. It doesn't matter. Thank God they do this, because, you know, the Range Rover was really almost the only one who did that in this price class. I think the Land Cruiser did too, but way more useful and way more convenient than, you know, even a power operated hatch on something like an Escalade or, you know, one of the Infinities or something like that. I think it's fantastic. I have seen it in darker colors. I think it works well in darker colors. I
Yeah.
think pearl white is kind of played as a color in my view. I'm glad that Lincoln is embracing other colors, is starting to. I think the black label is especially handsome. And I'm able to look past the idea that this is just a really gussied up expedition for what you get on it. My recollection, I think, is that the second row seats on this thing are heated and ventilated, which is an amenity that I can certainly support in any way.
I thought second and third row.
Oh, well, that just
That's
made
why
the Northwestern tailgate parties much more comfortable. Because the Northwestern gradually only ones who can afford something like this.
Right.
Um,
Not the J school though.
not the Medills, no.
Yeah.
I think it's sensational. And I would drive this car. I unabashedly love a big old American luxury SUV. I would love to have one of the original GMT 400 based Escalades. I think those are fantastic. This Navigator is amazing.
Yeah.
We spoke about the Escalade a couple weeks ago. Glenn and I did.
Yeah.
If you're faced with a choice, which would you do, Jeff?
The Lincoln.
Okay.
I would take the Lincoln because I think it is unlike the Cadillac, which is sort of suburban but more. Lincoln has really taken pains, I think, to set the Navigator apart from the Expedition in some really meaningful ways in terms of interior appointments, other design features, and it's been a while since I've driven them back to back, but my recollection is the Navigator was an easier drive than the Escalade, a more comfortable one. I think at this price point, they're all going to be, you know, it's not like you're going to be able to drive over a dime and call it heads or tails on either of these cars. I mean, they're pretty insulated, I think. But I think the Lincoln, hands down.
Okay. All right.
I pulled up an image of the car in sort of an interesting shade. It's sort of like a dark copper metallic tan.
That's
Yeah,
the one I saw.
Car and Driver,
and for me, that solves a lot of the problems with, I think all the white images that I saw just weren't highlighting some of the better, the headlight array with the sort of Egyptians kind of thing going off the end is really actually very sharp.
Mhm.
And it's got, this one has like running boards on it, which actually add a lot to the car. I'm with you on if I was going to drive one or the other, I think I would drive the Lincoln for sure too. It's just, you know, they're going to sell 1 million of these to the people that want to drive this car. I'm a poor person to talk about it because I'm Mr. Small Car, but now that I'm like pulling up some options, the Hurricane logo style wheels on this, a huge improvement kind of thing. I will say this, just a story about, I think it was a Navigator from the past. Going back a couple years, Doug and I were at the New York Auto Show, and was it a Navigator they unveiled in front of us, Doug? They pulled the sheet off.
No, that was the Aviator.
Was it the Aviator?
Mm.
Well, still a
Also
Lincoln.
an excellent car.
Yeah, still a Lincoln, but I will have to say that when they did that, they had a huge, you know, the huge satin sheet covering the car and a line suspended from the ceiling, and it went off. When the cover came off that car, there was an audible gasp in the room, in a good way. It was just, it
Of
was
journalists.
of of jaded people like me, that just gasped in a good way. It was a medium blue metallic color, and it was just, I mean, this is not my kind of car, and I thought, oh my God, I got to drive that immediately. Do you remember that, Doug? That was
absolutely. It's
so
it's
impressive.
a core. And so,
Yeah.
And I think one of the things about this is like, at that point, the Aviator I thought was a very cohesive design. Each piece of it worked. And they've since have done that with the Nautilus and the Corsair. And I never thought the Navigator was designed, like the front end and the back end and the middle were designed by 3 different teams.
I agree.
And it just felt like they were all kind of like, okay, well, if we scooch this a little bit, we can make it all fit, you know. But this seems like one person was in charge of the whole thing, and it has a nice flow. You know, I agree with Jeff. The front end just really sells it, and it's not as busy as the Escalade, which it's sort of for me, that's kind of like was the Coco Chanel, like
Take
look
one
in the
thing
mirror,
off.
Take the one thing off. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that down the road graphic for that Lincoln is so good. You know, there's no chance anyone's going to mistake it for anything but a Lincoln. And I agree, the sort of the current Navigator, the lights in the front, the lighting array didn't make a lot of sense. It felt a little aftermarket, didn't feel all that cohesive. The back end, they've been through a couple of different iterations of the back end, none of which I thought looked particularly good. This cleans up a lot of that stuff, and it is all, you know, and you're right. God, that Nautilus, good Lord, that's such a nice, talk about a glow up, man. That car is so nice.
Yes.
You know, I
Yeah.
mean, a car that, you know, was basically spent most of its life looking like a high top, high top tennis shoe of some kind, all of a sudden comes out and it's like, wow, this is that? Goodness. I mean, what a great car. Goodness.
Right.
There, I don't know what's going to happen with Lincoln. I understand they're not selling all that well, which is a shame, because I think in a lot of ways they're presenting a more cohesive lineup and a more clear vision about what they think American luxury vehicles ought to be than Cadillac is right now.
Right. And not just on the cars, I think on the sales level too. They have talked at auto shows in the past of making the whole sales experience a better experience, a more concierge sort of thing. And I, you know, they don't say it, but it seems like they're trying to be a Lexus, an American Lexus. And good on them. And I said this a couple weeks ago when we were talking about the Escalade. It was like, Lincoln knows who it is. They just got to sell it, you know?
Yeah.
That's what.
I figured out what it is about this car. It is a little boxy for my taste. The overhang behind the back wheel is a little long for me.
Yeah.
That's my gripe about this car. I just feel like that needs to be shortened up, but then we're losing the utility and the size. And I think the idea behind this is to get a third row and have a lot of cargo space behind it, which virtually nobody does.
All right, that's going to do it for this week.
Oh, we're done.
Yeah, we got.
But Jeff is here. Jeff is here.
What-
I feel like
we
the
have
little
more-
kid. Mrs. Buckles, can Jeff please stay out for 15 more minutes? We're not done with their game.
Street lights go on, you're coming home, kid.
Right.
I can safely predict that Jeff will be back for one more, if not two more shows.
Ooh.
Probably one.
Okay, all right.
Probably
All right.
one.
Okay. And with that, we're gonna wrap up this week. Remember to like and subscribe on our YouTube page, Car-Pinionated, under the Fox 61 News page. If you have a weird car, please send it to me, dstewart@fox61.com. Tell us why you like it. And with that, we will bid you a good night.